Hey everybody, this is Tammy with Therapy Talk with Tammy and Pauline. I'm really excited for you guys to hear a conversation that I'm about to have. I have Christina and Daniel Deffenbaugh, and they have a project called 1042. It's actually called the 1042 Project. And how it associates them with me is basically trauma. So we're just going to have a candid conversation about what is 1042 and how did you guys get involved with it?
Yeah, so 1042 was birthed from my 14 years of law enforcement experience. I was a police officer here in the central Iowa area. And during the 14 years as a police officer, I was exposed to a lot of trauma, obviously, as first responders are. And I was not coping with it well. I was using alcohol to numb my pain. After I got law enforcement, I then turned to pain pills as well to help numb the pain. And because I was not handling my mental health well, I ended up going out on medical disability through my pension board in 2014. And that opened up a whole Pandora box of bad experiences that followed. I had lost my job in 2014, went on medical disability, so I felt like I lost my purpose. A lot of first responders feel like our badges and our uniforms are our purpose, and I did. I truly felt back then that God sent me to this earth to be a police officer, and that was it. Pretty dumb to think about now. Now I understand how God sees me and the identity, my true identity. And so after 2014, when I had my home foreclosed on, lost my job, everything was crashing down. And that just set off a 6 years of spiral even further down, because now I felt like I lost my purpose. So I was literally living my life, planning my suicide every day.
You were living your life doing what?
Planning my suicide.
Gotcha.
Even though I had 3 kids, I didn't even feel worthy to be their father. I didn't feel worthy to be a son or a friend to anybody because I had gotten to such a bad mental mindset where I didn't trust anybody in my life. I truly felt like everything in the world was dark because as a first responder, you go from call to call dealing with everybody's worst day of their life. And for them, it's one moment in their life and it's traumatic. But for us, it's consistent and we're constantly going through it. And,
Definitely.
and constantly being exposed to it. And I wasn't doing well with that. So in 2020, I got engaged to my beautiful wife, Christina. And for the first time, I started opening up about the struggles and what I was going through. And she can talk more about that. But she actually identified it and started asking me the right questions.
Yeah.
And got me to open up. It took some time. It didn't happen overnight.
Thank God for you, Christina.
Thank you. I'm grateful, but it helped that Daniel, got to a place where he was willing to, I guess, in a sense, be vulnerable and go out on a limb and trust me. And I definitely did what I could to try to help him feel that it was a safe space. But I am just grateful that he was willing to open up.
Yeah.
She was my saving grace. And once she got me to open up a little bit about it, but to go back before that. So in June 13th of 2020, the day before that, I had a really bad counseling session with a counselor. I tried to go to a new counselor. I don't know. He must've been in a hurry. It just went bad. And I'm not saying the guy's a bad counselor, people have different experiences with different counselors.
No, but I'm glad you're saying that. With this being a mental health channel, we tell people all the time, like, you need to find the right fit. And you need to be with the right person. And if your feelers are going off and if you're feeling like, this isn't really going where I need to go, you need to trust your gut instinct. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that.
Yeah. And that's hard because, when you leave a therapist or if that happens, you kind of feel like you're hurting their feelings. You know?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
But it's truly one of those times where in life you have to be selfish.
So you had a bad session.
Yeah. So the next day I had gone down to work. I was working in Southern Iowa at the time. And when I got back out of that session, I cried all night long. I didn't sleep. The next day I got up, I drove to work, and my work started at 6. So I got there at 6 and I just could not hold myself together. I would just sit in my office bawling. And at that time I had made my decision that I was engaged and she has 2 beautiful kids. And the thought of bringing them into my trauma, into my life, because at that point I was hiding it from them, seemed overwhelming. I honestly felt like I just needed to end my life, to end me causing pain to other people. And when I left work that day on my way to go kill myself, as I was driving, I just felt the presence of God. And this is for the first time in my life I ever felt the presence of God just come into my car. And I've just felt the Holy Spirit telling me to turn to a lake that was on the way home. And I went there and I basically just asked God, what the heck do you want? We're going to be talking here soon. I'm about to go kill myself. What do you want? And I was bawling, and he showed an image of a first responder sitting in a bathtub. And it was an image of what I used to do. I would plan my suicide, and I would get my jet tub to contain the blood and not to make a mess for other first responders. And I saw a vision of a first responder sitting in a tub just like that. But it wasn't me this time. It was somebody different. And at that time, I heard God just say, hey, we're going to help show the world what help is and what it looks like for first responders. And not in a cocky way. We don't have any new therapy or anything like that. But the biggest problem with first responders is they don't know about the resources that are out there. There's a stigma attached to the resources and reaching out for help. And we are just going to use our voice and our microphones and our cameras, and we're going to be the voice for first responders so they can know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to hurt when you go through these traumatic calls, and that there's a community that loves you and that cares for you and that understands you. And we want to just give them a platform. So that's why we started 1042 Project. And we got our 501c3 last December, and since then we've been traveling the countries, going to some amazing cities, going to mental health conferences, and we set up our recordings there, and we make recordings with the people there. And we just try to bring the resources to the first responder, no matter where they are. If they don't have the courage to show up to a conference for mental health, they may have the courage to listen to a video that we're making, just like this video right here, and get some help quietly on their own, discreetly, without anybody else knowing that they're getting it, if that's what they want. And they can kind of help slowly peel that onion to where they can start addressing the issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah. One thing I heard you say is just like the isolation. It felt like you were saying that as a first responder, even though you're with probably a huge team of people, you were still feeling very, very isolated, alone, and on an island. And it sounds like what you're doing with this nonprofit, the 1042 Project, is you're making it so we're together in this. You are not alone. This is not something that you need to struggle with alone like I did. And this is what we're doing. And this is such a passion project for you.
Yes, absolutely. You nailed it right on the head. And it's been a journey. And we're learning as we go. You know, we're not professionals. You know, we're not doctors. We're not therapists. We're not going to give you advice and say this will help. Our job is just to let you know about the resources that are out there. Let them know what's out there. And like you said, let them know there's a community that understands them and loves them.
Yeah. So what are some resources? I know we're talking about in Iowa, but is there some national resources, or are there any local resources that you guys are familiar with that you can refer people if there are first responders listening today?
So first, I definitely want to mention our peer support group. For anybody local, we've got a peer support group that meets twice a month. And then as far as resources go, because we really strive to find resources that are going to really help first responders, and specifically first responders, because it is kind of a niche community. They go through things and experience kinds of trauma that not everybody does. We're really looking for organizations and people that have really that have experience in that. So we will connect people with resources even outside of their own state. So I mean, we've talked to organizations that focus on the fun, life-giving activities like boating, golfing, hunting, camping, things like that. In counselors, all the way to inpatient facilities on each coast of the United States, and amazing organizations that will work with us with financing and being able to make sure that first responders that want that help and want those resources can get there. And that's really what our aim is, to break down whatever barrier is in place. So if somebody's open to a treatment like that, and maybe they don't know how they're going to get there, or something of like that, we will address that barrier with them and do everything that we can to get them connected to the resource that they're wanting, even outside of their state. But locally, that's also an option as well. If somebody wants to stay, like they're in Iowa and they want to stay in Iowa, then really we just work with people on an individual basis. What are you needing? What are you looking for? What are you open to? And we just do our best to make sure that we match them with, what the best fit is for them, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just there to give them advice. Like I said, we're not doctors, anything like that. We just kind of tell them what resources are out there. And as we're making these videos, like this podcast that we're making right now, that's part of what we're doing is we are learning the resources as we do these videos.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the resources we don't even know yet. Our audience is finding out the same time we do. But that's what our organization is about. We are going to kick over every rock and find the resource and bring it in front of our cameras and our microphones to explain what it is, how it can help.
Yeah.
And just give our first responders the tools. So a lot of what we do, we don't provide the direct care. What we do is we're the bridge between the first responders wanting help and the resources that are trying to provide it, because they are not finding each other.
Well, and one thing you said earlier too was like the stigma. It sounds like that there is just a really, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a negative stigma for first responders. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to be this and that, and the third thing, and we don't ask for help. And it sounds like maybe some of what you guys are doing is reducing some of that stigma. Like, hey, like you said, it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
So, what was the stigma like when you were an officer compared to like how maybe you're seeing it now, if there is any differences?
There's definitely a lot of differences. So when I went in, I started in 2000. I was a 20-year-old kid right out of college. And when I came in, all first responders had at that time was to look towards the senior officers that came before you and to try to learn from them how they deal with it. Because when you don't know, you look around for help.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So you look at the senior people above you, and unfortunately they did the same thing. They mocked the people that came before them. And so this generation has just been passing down the same garbage down to each other. The tough guy syndrome, we don't talk about it. We're first responders, we're strong. Suck it up, buttercup. I mean, that's the kind of words that
Man up.
Yeah, that's the kind of words that even supervisors will use with their officers.
Yeah.
And and a lot of the officers that came before me that I was watching were getting off of work and going to drink alcohol. It's kind of a thing that first responders do. You get off your shift, you go with a group of people you just worked with, and you go have some booze, and you think you're decompressing and doing a healthy thing when actually you're sitting there all lying to each other, making jokes about it, and hiding the true feelings is what it comes down to. But I truly think that we're starting to see a turn in that through some of the departments that we've worked with, and a lot of people are starting to understand that you can't hide this anymore.
Yeah.
That the society's hidden this for way too long, and asking for help is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of wisdom.
Yes.
And we're going to help replace that lie, because a lot of people do believe that asking for help is a sign of weakness. You should be able to figure this out on your own. And as a therapist, as I'm sure you know, we can't do this on our own. We can't.
I can't do it on my own either. Yeah. I need to reach out for help when I need it.
That's it.
And God knows I need it. So
We all do.
yeah, we totally do. Oh my goodness. Well, you are providing so much hope for, I think, first responders, and even like, I think it's good for anybody in any field to hear you say that it's okay to not be okay. I think the generation that we grew up in, our parents didn't really teach us that. Let's talk about your feelings.
Right.
Let's talk about what you're struggling with. Hey, let's work this out together. I knew I grew up in a home where we don't talk about any of that stuff, let alone talk about anything at all. So I think society right now is seeing a shift towards mental health, and there's a whole lot out there, with social media and stuff. So we're learning it's more of like it's a slang in homes now with taking care of your mental health, with coping and things like that. So I really appreciate that society's making that shift. And I'm really glad that it's making that shift for first responders. It makes me kind of feel like, what would that have been like for you? How would it have been differently if we had the society now making that shift to like when you needed that?
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I'd probably still be wearing a badge, and I'd probably still be doing, what I felt like God called me to do at the time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately I didn't have that, and that's okay.
And you're making the change.
We're going to change that.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're not going to let other people dictate or tell us how we feel or how we should handle it.
Everybody has a voice.
That's it. We're going to give everybody a voice.
And Christina, your impact on this sounds amazing. So what is your role as a wife, as a person in this 1042 project? Sorry, I stumbled there.
Oh, no, you're good. So I guess first and foremost, as a wife, just being as supportive and so as supportive as I can and doing my best to make sure that our relationship is a safe space. Because I think that, I guess I would say from my perspective that intentionality is what helped Daniel open up to begin with. And I think helped us grow to this place that we're in now where we're able to, do what we're doing with 1042 Project. And then my role with 1042 Project is really, multifaceted. I do a lot of our background stuff, paperwork, things of that nature, but then also just being right alongside Daniel with, talking with first responders, hearing their stories, talking with the professionals. And it's been an amazing blessing to be in the space where I get to see first responders talk to each other and share their stories, and then see the look on their face when they realize that somebody understands and that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And you can just see, I guess I would say you can see the hope touch their face when they're like, wow, I am accepted here. I'm okay. To this group of people, I'm not a stigma. I'm not an outcast. They understand and they've been where I am. And I just love that. I love being a part of it. It's amazing.
Absolutely. It's been a blessing.
Yeah.
We got a lot more work to do, and I'm glad you had us on because I know you specialize in trauma, and and to me, trauma's trauma. Everybody's trauma is different. I understand that, but when you experience trauma, the mental and the physical effects can be the same. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you had us on because a lot of people don't think about first responders when it comes to trauma. They kind of get forgotten about. So I'm glad that you had a chance for us to come on and talk to your audience because you probably do have first responders that listen, or you have family members of first responders that are listening. Because what we do is it's not just for the first responders, it's for the family.
And I think too, just having empathy towards first responders. I mean, if you don't have a direct connection with somebody in your family who's a first responder, maybe you're listening to this, and when you see a first responder, hopefully, maybe you have some shift in thinking for that. Have more empathy towards firefighters, police officers, and EMTs, and everybody who's involved with. When you're a first responder, you're the first on the scene. I mean, let's have some grace and let's have some empathy with what you guys have gone through. And if I'm just, let's say I'm a sister to one of those first responders, I can be more empathetic towards you. And so maybe that's something that our audience will learn too, is that, they go through a lot. We don't really sit back and think and reflect what they go through, but really think and see what they're going through. It's really tough.
Absolutely. And that's what's great about what we're doing too, is even if you don't have any relationship to first responders,
right,
just for them to hear the other side of a lifestyle that they've never been introduced to, that they have no idea. With first responders, a lot of it's cumulative PTSD. It may not be one event that causes it. It's the fact that you're going from call to call, going to people's worst days, and you're constantly having to see that. So cumulative PTSD it's tough because you're not just treating one incident that happened in your life that you can focus on and you can process and you can try to do that. You're having multiple.
Right. And it's like what you said earlier, the onion, there's all these layers of trauma that you guys are just carrying around with you.
Constantly. And you don't have time to process them. And I know we were at a conference in Boston, and there was a lady talking, and she said that when someone goes through a traumatic event, the chemicals in the brain that get affected, it takes around 30 hours for those to come back to balance, to get you back to homeostasis. And as first responders, we don't get that. Literally, we may have 5 minutes from leaving a traumatic call before we get called to another one. So you don't have time to process. So it becomes cumulative and it piles on. And the reason why we named this 1042 project, because around here, and every department's different, but the 10 code for going off duty to being out of service. So when I go on duty, I go 1041. When I went off duty, I'd say county, I'm 1042. And that's when first responders struggle. When we're at work, we have resources. Plus, you're in go mode, you're in macho mode, you're superhero, you think.
Right.
But when you get off of work and you take that uniform off and you walk in your front door, now those emotions that have been suppressed during your last 10-hour shift, we work 10-hour shifts, would come back and it would flood in and they'd come in all at once. And
how do you handle that?
Well, how I handled it, I went to the store and I walked down the alcohol aisle and I picked out a bottle of alcohol and I'd go back to my house and I would drink, not to get drunk. I would drink to pass out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to deal with it. Now that's not the healthy way to do it. The healthy way to do it is, to have a counselor, have a coach, whatever it may be, a psychiatrist, whether it's medication, whatever you may need, and use the tools that God's given us to help you with this, because you cannot do this on your own.
Yeah. We need to take a deep breath. That's all heavy stuff. I know you're talking earlier about your testimony. In session, I tell people all the time, this is a season, it's going to change. That's how I came up with the name Seasons Change Counseling. And I believe everybody has a story. And your story, everybody has a story. Christina's story, how it just intermixed with Daniel's story. And now we have this beautiful project. I love stories. I love collecting stories as a therapist, but I love what you guys are doing. You guys are collectively changing the world. And your passion is touching my heart. I'm going to try not to cry. And I really appreciate what you're doing, because
thank you.
It definitely needs to be done, and you're doing it. And thank you, Christina, for your prayers and intervening and helping, and God helping Daniel be here today. So
thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm a crier, so I apologize for that. I do it all the time now. So where can we find you? If somebody wants to throw gobs of money at you and say, hey, I really want to stand behind this mission, what these great people are doing, where can we find you? What can we do to support you and maybe share what you guys are doing with the rest of the world?
So I would say definitely check out our website. It's 10-42project.org. That's definitely probably the quickest and easiest way to reach out to us. If you want to donate, if you want to speak to us, you can also go to our Facebook page and reach out to us that way. Our Daniel and I both have an email address that's on our website, but also it's our names, Dan at 1042project.org and Christina at 1042project.org. And yeah, we definitely love to hear from you guys.
Perfect.
Yeah, and if you're a first responder and you want to get connected with us, or somebody that it is, just go to our website. There's a button on there called Get Connected. Just click on that, fill out your information, and we will get back to you. I will personally call you back and hear from you and let you know what we have to offer. So if you're a first responder, please reach out. That's 10-42project.org.
And I want you guys to all share this. This is such an amazing message. And we never know whose eyes it's going to come across or whose ears it's going to come across. So please help us with the mission of destigmatizing, having people feeling isolated and alone, and help us destigmatize just mental health in general. Mental health hits all sorts of occupations and levels, and it hits every single one of us. So sharing this and commenting on here and just reaching out to others, knowing that they're struggling. We really want you to do that. So anyway, I've rambled long enough. As you know, I do this. I ramble. But I want to thank you guys. Is there anything I didn't ask that you think would be important for all of us to know before we sign off?
I don't think so. I just want people to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You do not have to walk alone. And I want you to know that there's a place that loves you and understands you, and you are welcome the way you are. You don't have to get sober. You don't have to go through several counseling sessions and feel like you're mentally ready. Come as you are.
Yeah.
Come as you are. I don't care if you're like me and you were just isolated to your room. Come as you are. You are accepted. There's no guilt. There's no shame here at the 1042 Project.
I love that.
Well said. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Nice.
See?
Aww, you guys are so cute. All right, guys, I'm signing off, but thank you so much, you guys. I love you guys to death, and I really appreciate you being on here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.